kind of just talked to her a little bit, but hopefully we can catch up with her tomorrow. So, what clip are we gonna jump out the gate with, Oz?
Well, I don't know. I think we're going to start out with the Chris Hedges. And everybody on YouTube, sorry, the stream started a little late over there for some reason. Yeah, no Savage Joy today. Hopefully we'll have her in the dive tomorrow. And Chanda and I are just going to cowboy this one, or Roy Rogers, how you put it. Yeah, I think we'll just cut in with a few minutes of Chris Hedges so we can get some perspective. And then we'll heat it up a little bit. What do you think? Is that all right?
We'll turn it on high.
Okay, all right. Let's get that clip going. This is Chris Hedges, and it's the analysis of the George Floyd protests. I think he's dead on.
Welcome to On Contact. Today we discuss the protests that have erupted in over 140 American cities with the executive editor of Black Agenda Report, Glenn Ford.
And the black misleadership class actually seems to be more angry and bitter about this in some respects than the white misleadership class. Sometimes it's funny. The activists have coined a term called co-propaganda to describe these funny gestures by cops and other authority figures to be kneeling, a gesture of submission to the demands. But of course, it's a diversion, a distraction designed to soften people's attitudes towards the rulers, and it shouldn't fool anyone.
The ruling elites no longer have legitimacy. They have destroyed our capitalist democracy and replaced it with a mafia state. What the Roman philosopher Cicero called a commonwealth, a res publica, a public thing, or the property of a people has been transformed into an instrument of naked pillage and repression on behalf of a global corporate oligarchy. We are serfs ruled by obscenely rich, omnipotent masters who loot the U.S. Treasury, pay little or no taxes, and have perverted the judiciary, the media, and the legislative branches of government to strip us of civil liberties and give them the freedom to commit financial fraud and theft. The loss of control over our system of rulership, the misuse of all democratic institutions, the electoral process and laws to funnel money upwards into a handful of oligarchs while stripping us of power ominously means that the ruling elites can no longer claim the right to have a monopoly on violence. Violence employed by police and security agencies such as the FBI, which have devolved into occupying forces to protect the exclusive interests of a tiny, ruling, criminal class, exposes the fiction of the rule of law and the treason of the ruling elites. The current waves of protests are correctly targeting the commodification of blackness by the state. Brittany Friedman, a Rutgers University professor, told Black Agenda Report, "We do not need the carceral state to save us," she went on, "because the carceral state is the one that is killing us." But where do we go from here? With more than 10,000 arrests by militarized police of largely non-violent protesters and the indiscriminate use of beatings, pepper spray, rubber bullets, and tear gas on peaceful crowds. In order for nonviolence to work, your opponent must have a conscience. Stokely Carmichael warned, and if your opponent is bereft of a conscience, then state violence is inevitably met with counter-violence. Tyranny takes the place of reform. The danger of widespread sectarian violence in America is now very real. Joining me to discuss the protests that have erupted in over 140 American...
Yeah, let's cut it there.
Yeah, let's cut it
there.
Normally we have our cuts, perfect, but we literally just built this show in the last 20 minutes. So bear with us. We're on the fly today. Wow, that was, when he says nonviolent protest only works if your opponent is nonviolent, exactly. And we know the police are not nonviolent, huh?
Yeah, it's really turning into a big mess. I want to shout out, hey Al Wolski, hey Vermont, how's Vermont today? And Mark Burns, he says, I need some John rage. Well, we always need some John rage. But John's kind of like he's often working on Shahid Buttar's campaign. Mark, which is a good cause. We need to get Pelosi out of there one way or another, and we've got high hopes. It's against all odds, but we got high hopes. He's one of the best candidates I've seen around, and John's working on that.
Agree.
Yeah, and John's also waist deep in getting a radio station and getting us hooked up with the radio network. He's kind of like, to quote John, I've been pounding sand for 5 years now. It's time to take a new direction as far as independent media. And we're supporting that. We're involved in that. And we're letting John take the helm on that. And John's got the water boy here, Oz, taking care of the shows. So sorry about that. And John may make some special appearances, especially when he wants to rant.
I would love if John would come make a special appearance on The Accidental Activist. I've been following that man for almost 5 years.
Yeah. John's a unique personality, and we love hearing what he's got to say. So I think we're doing okay. Did we got quiet in the chat? Did they all leave us?
I popped out of the chat. So
you popped out of the chat.
Yeah, a couple of them are leaving us.
Yeah, I know.
I get it. Today's a rough show.
Yeah, it's a rough show. Our guest didn't show, and we hope she's okay. So anyway, let's endeavor to persevere. So what do we got next there?
Let's talk about this murder in Atlanta. I threw a couple of clips up on the deck for you.
Okay, let's start out with the CBC Radio Canada clip. I think that's a good clip, so we'll start and stop this one a couple of times. Okay.
Anger and outrage spilled into the streets of Atlanta last night. The large crowds gathered to protest police brutality and call for criminal charges after the killing of a black man by an Atlanta police officer. Demonstrators were met head-on by a large group of police officers. They shut down a major highway, were largely peaceful. However, the same can't be said for other scenes in the city. Some demonstrators chose to focus their anger on the site of the shooting, this Wendy's restaurant. It's been reduced to charred rubble. All this adding more fuel to the nationwide conversation about discrimination and racism. Laura McQuillan is tracking the story for us and joins us now. Laura, what's the latest?
Well, we are learning some new details about the police officers involved in this shooting, John, and we also have some new video to share with you. But on the point of those officers, the news came through in the middle of the night that one of them has now been fired. That is Garrett Rolfe, the officer on the left there who fired the shots at Rayshard Brooks, killing him. Now, Rolfe had been a police officer for 7 years with the Atlanta Police. Devin Brosnan, who you see on the right, was the other officer in the incident. He has been placed on administrative leave, but there are calls for charges to be laid as well, and really that call hinges on whether it was an appropriate use of force for police to shoot Brooks.
Well, before we show whether you guys think it was an appropriate use of force, you got some thoughts on this, Chanda?
You know, it seems like every single day now I sit down and I have to watch Police of America killing a black man before our eyes. Even in light of all of the George Floyd protests and all of the killings before that, we're just seeing more and more. I mean, we're barely touching on what's going on across the country right now. But, you know, my thoughts are, he was asleep in a car at a Wendy's drive-thru? So that warranted all of this?
Yeah, I've fallen asleep at a stoplight before in the middle of the night, not because I'd been drinking, but I was just exhausted. And, you know, I woke up within 5 minutes. Nobody came up and tapped on my window or anything. It was like, you know, in some burb out in Oregon somewhere, so there was no traffic anyway. But that was back in the 70s, you know? I mean, really? But I venture to say, I think if it would have been a white person that did this, fell asleep at a Wendy's drive-thru, I'm not going to say it wouldn't have happened, but I doubt very seriously it would have ended up with bullets in him. So, yeah, let's see if we can move this along and get the clip going here. Oh, there we go.
Filmed by an eyewitness. You can see there is a struggle ensuing there, and Brooks did manage to take the taser from one of the officers during that struggle. He then was running away from that scene. You see a police officer discharge the taser that he was holding as Brooks fled, and then an officer fired shots. Now, all of that was caught on a camera as well, a body camera that had fallen off one of the officers, and I want to show you that now, but I do want to warn you, you may find the video disturbing, so keep that in mind when you watch.
Had about 1.5 drinks, but you don't remember what kind of drinks they were?
No, sir.
All right.
I really don't, Mr. Rock.
All right, I think you've had too much to drink to be driving, so put your hands behind your back for me. Yeah, put your hands behind your back.
Hey, stop fighting! Stop fighting! Stop fighting! You're gonna get tased! You're gonna get tased! You're gonna get tased! Stop! Come on, man! Stop! You're gonna get tased!
Mr. Rock!
Hey! Stop! Stop fighting! Stop fighting! Hands off the taser! Stop fighting! 63.
Now, you see the video there, that object in Brooks' hand as he runs is a police officer's taser, but there is, as I mentioned, debate over whether it was warranted to shoot a gun at him as he was holding a non-lethal weapon. That is exactly the call or the message that we have heard from a lawyer for Brooks' family, and here is what he told media.
Well, first of all, before we hear from the lawyer, I think that you want to weigh in on that, Chanda?
I do. You know, I'm just... how many fucking times do we got to watch this play out? Every single day before, you know, police forces get it, before the establishment gets it. How many fucking times? You know, I got a DUI once. I did. I was young and I liked to drink. And, you know, my first response to this was, okay, he's probably not in a very clear state of mind. The cops woke him up, right? Did they see him drive? I mean, they're arresting him for DUI, but he's literally out of his car standing there. Did they watch him drive, for one? And then, you know, we're talking a taser. A taser is not a lethal weapon. I have a taser. I own a taser. I've tased myself by accident. I didn't die. And the fact that he is shooting him in the back, he shot him in the fucking back. I grew up in an era where the police were not allowed to shoot at you. If you ran, then they chased you, but they didn't fucking open up on you. I mean, am I wrong? Or was that like that in the 70s and 80s? I mean, I don't, even TV shows in the 80s, the cops didn't open up on somebody fleeing.
No, I'm concerned again that this is going to be one more log on the fire, because this really is just starting to come out. It happened, yesterday morning?
Yesterday morning.
And this is going to be top of the news on Monday, I believe. Wouldn't you agree with that? Yeah. At least with that, you know, and this is going to set off a whole nother discussion about the same problems we're having. The use of lethal force in the face of non-lethal aggression. I mean, and it wasn't it was pulling away, running away, you know, whatever. And yeah, I've got friends and relatives. Well, when an officer pulls you over, you better do what you say. Yeah.
They had his car, so they knew who he fucking was. They would have had his license plate. You let him run home drunk, and then you come knock on his door and you arrest him 4 hours fucking later. You don't shoot him in the back. We have protocol for this.
No, that's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, there were kids back in the day that did virtually the same thing. They'd worm their way out of a cop's grip and they'd run home, and then they'd hide in their basement, and the cops would show up, you know, later on and say, "Hey, is your son home?" So, you know, what happened was somebody's child just got shot in the back again. A child of color once again.
It was ego. It was ego. That cop's ego was hurt that, for one, he was stronger than both of them, because when he put his arm back, you know, he was big enough to where he could break free of them, so that his ego was bruised. And then you took his taser. He's going to get made fun of by the other cops because you let somebody take your taser. That's kind of the impression I got.
That's that mindset thing. I don't know. I think that you've collated a possible scenario there. I mean, the cop was going to get heat, and he lost control. They both lost control of the situation, and then they lost control of their sensibilities.
And they have no critical thinking.
No.
You would think a police officer needs to be trained in critical thinking skills and de-escalation. Okay, the situation is exploding very quickly. How do I de-escalate this? Okay, it's easier to just let him go home, and we'll send a force out to
let
get
him
later,
let him run around. I'll take my lumps from my sergeant for losing my taser and whatever, but again, the guy was a big guy, and he was not rushing them. There's no this in fear for my life bullshit. He was running away. So
yep.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if the chat's got anything. Hey, Shelty.
Yeah, I'm watching the chat.
Yeah.
We got Veg in here. Jilly. Welcome, Jilly Love. I see you, Pat the Batman fan.
Yeah.
Human stopped by.
Hi, guys. Hey.
You guys behave in there.
Yeah. Let's keep the knives not out today, okay?
Yeah, no knives today.
No knives today, guys. Let's play nice, okay? Anyway, yeah, I mean, this is one more day of mayhem. Saturday, that was the 13th of June. And how many more days of mayhem? How many more mothers, sons, and daughters are going to die because of this? And let's hear what the lawyer has to say.
Yeah, let's hear what
quick.
the lawyer has to say.
I mean, cogent, to the point. I agree with him. Let's turn it on, Oz. Okay.
In Georgia, a taser is not a deadly weapon. That's the law. That's what
I don't know where it is a deadly weapon.
It's not a deadly weapon. I've had cases where officers have used tasers on victims, and they argue with us in court that tasers aren't deadly, that tasers aren't harmful. You cannot have it both ways. You can't say he ran off with a weapon that could kill somebody when you say it's not deadly.
Now, as I mentioned, the Georgia Bureau of Investigations is taking a closer look at this, John, and
they're taking a closer look at it. What does that mean?
Well, so we know that yesterday afternoon, this was yesterday morning in Atlanta. So by yesterday afternoon, the police officer who did shoot, he was fired, and the other one was placed on suspension. That was also there. And then the chief of police for Atlanta resigned. So within just a few hours, I mean, we are seeing some swift action down there, but it's too late. It's too late. The damage is already done. That man's not coming home to his children ever again. And that's what we need to really start fighting. Like, come on, these are human beings. They have families, they have brothers, they have sisters, they have mothers, they have aunts, uncles, children that they're no longer coming home to, and their family's got to watch them die on the 6 o'clock news.
I'm just thinking what Mark Burns said earlier about having John rage. If John was in here, he'd be raging.
Oh, John would be raging.
Jesus Christ, he'd be losing his shit. But all of us are kind of losing our shit. Can I run a little bit of this just to show some context here, and I'll just run this clip. This is the one you got from Global News, and this kind of gives us some personality to the whole situation. What this guy was and what happened. So, and we're not gonna go through the whole thing, but it's disturbing. I mean, here he is in his car. He's stopped. Knock, knock, knock.
How many times I've been drunk and passed out in my car?
Yep.
I didn't end up dead.
Yo, what's up, my man? Hey. Come in. Hey man, you're parked in the middle of the drive-through line here.
Now he's passed out hard. Now if I woke up, I wouldn't know what the hell was
in the
going
drive-through.
Yeah, he's on, car's on.
Yeah.
It took me like a few minutes to wake him up. Kept knocking, opened the door, shook him. Woke up super groggy. Got pretty good smell of alcoholic beverage coming out of the car. Eyes are watery, glassy. Slurred his words, wasn't sure what it was.
Alcohol beverage.
And telling me he had one drink, he said earlier. Standard size. Tried to say, I think just one drink, but I can smell alcohol still. And he's trying to tell me, where are you coming from? He said, well, I'm coming from Jonesboro. I got food. I said, what are you doing here? I got more food. So he's really not too clear, like, exactly how I got here, got there. But I mean,
So this was a 911 call, right?
yeah, the drive-through called it in.
So somebody called because he was in the drive-thru.
He just passed out in the car.
Passed out in the drive-thru.
Yep.
Okay.
That's
and
where
then
I
you
found
just
him.
had him pull over to the
Yeah, I
side.
had
And
him
this
move
is
out of the
body
way, and
cam,
pulled
right?
up. He actually
Yeah,
over
but
the curb,
one of these
onto
body
the
cams
grass,
got knocked on the
like,
ground
backed it
during
up.
the scuffle.
So I leave him here.
Oh, there's Joy.
Sure, absolutely. All right, let me go talk to him. What's his name? Do you have his ID?
Yeah. This is a rental car.
The reason why we're here is because somebody called 911 because you were asleep behind the wheel while you're in the drive-thru, right? You recall that?
I don't.
You don't recall that? You don't recall just minutes ago where you were passed out behind
Is
the wheel?
Joy in the room? Is she coming?
She sent me a
don't
message,
recall that
said,
at all.
"Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I forgot the
Just
time."
complete
And I
blur.
said, "Well,
I
pop on
wasn't
if you
driving.
got
Like I
time."
said, I just drained my girlfriend. She probably was sleeping, but like I said,
She's on her
babe, I
way.
want French fries.
So
and
far as I'm
soda."
aware, you're the only person that's been seen in this vehicle, right?
Yeah, one person.
Okay. So how did your car get from here to the drive-thru line?
I never moved.
So how did it get there?
It never did get there.
You see what he's doing here,
I was in
Oz?
her car.
Well, we've got a 911 call.
The cop is trying to get him to admit that he
people
drove
reporting a guy
from
passed
the
out behind the
drive-through
wheel
to that
in
parking
the line.
spot because he
This
can't
officer
charge him
gets
with
here
DUI
and
because he
sees
didn't
you. Everything's
witness
on
him
camera.
driving.
Sees you
Sees
in the
me
line.
here in the line.
In the line.
I wasn't in the line. Did I pull you over in the line?
I walked up. You had to wake up, man.
You didn't pull him
right
over.
here.
No, over there. I had to wake you up.
Well, look.
Then he went back to sleep, and I had to wake you up again.
Like I said,
what?
I'm sorry if I just got something to eat. I went to visit my mother's gravesite. I'm not causing any problems.
Well, we got to make sure that you're safe to operate a vehicle. Now, do you know where you are?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where
I'm
are
in
you?
Forest Park, Old Dixie Highway. I can just go home. I have my daughters there right now. My daughter's birthday was yesterday.
All right. Hold on, Mr. Brooks. Will you take a preliminary breath test for me? It's yes or no.
They know
I
his
don't want to
name.
refuse anything.
Yeah, he's just drunk. He's just drunk. He's drunk,
And
and
he was sleeping in his car in
Yeah.
a parking stall.
in a parking. Well, it was it a parking
Originally,
stall
he
or drive-through? They had him pull over to the, or they pulled him over, or was it?
I don't know how he got there. That's not clear.
Yeah.
At first, we see him; he's in the drive-through asleep, and then the next scene, we see he's parked in this parking stall and he's asleep again. So that is not clear, but
So that gives you a sentence of being shot to death. No, what got you the sentence of being shot to death was resisting arrest and taking their taser away and trying to run away. That's a death sentence these days. Is that correct?
it is if you're a person of color in America.
For sure, obviously. I just, again, people are going to argue this for a while, but in your heart of hearts, have you ever been drunk and belligerent even, or, fought back any authority figure, security, police trying to get away, or I just...
I'm a mouthy ass Karen. Of course I have.
Yeah, well...
When I get drunk, there ain't nobody going to tell me nothing. So
Yeah.
I found him very calm considering the situation.
Yeah, I did too. And he even apologized. He was sober enough to say, I apologize for doing whatever. So obviously, at some point, he went frantic, right? So...
Well, because they didn't tell him, we're arresting you. He just said, well, you smell like alcohol and I don't think that you're capable of driving. Can you put your arms behind your back? Now, I think that's one of the worst fucking things that cops do is they don't say, okay, I'm going to arrest you now. You're under arrest for blah, blah, blah. And they start reading your Miranda rights. No, normally, and I've noticed this, the new protocol is get those hands behind your back and get you in handcuffs before they tell you they're arresting you and what you're being charged with. More times than not, they put the hands behind their back and then they tell you as they get the cuffs on.
Well, let's see that transitional point here. I've got it up there.
So we got Joy on her way in. Hang tight, guys. She's
Joy's a coming. Is she coming?
Yeah.
Okay.
The drink to be driving. Put your hands behind your back for me. Here, put your hands behind your back. Hey, stop fighting! Stop fighting! Stop fighting! Stop fighting! You're gonna get tased! You're gonna get tased! Stop!
Mr. Raw.
Stop!
Come on, man.
Stop! You're gonna get tased!
Mr. Raw.
Hands off the taser! Hands off the taser! Stop fighting! Hands off the taser!
So I don't think they said you're under arrest, did they?
I don't think so. It could have been They didn't read him his rights. What are they going to handcuff him?
Drink.
Okay, a sticky
They
drink.
just said put your hands behind your back.
Ah, shit. There's the replay from the
Car dash cam.
is that the oh wow, that's a dash
Yeah, it looks
cam.
like a dash cam.
Yeah. So he struggles, and the one cop tases him in the thigh, and the guy's drunk, so he has some anesthetization going. He's been anesthetized mentally, so the taser's not going to have the effect maybe it would have normally. And the guy looks to be a good 240 pounds anyway.
Right.
Big guy, you know. He's got their damn taser. The guy tases him 2 more times, runs off, and then bang, bang, bang. Okay, that's it.
So let's talk about Atlanta's reaction to this.
Yeah, Atlanta's reaction. Yeah, which video was that?
I just dropped a ton of videos on.
Let me see if I can find it.
We're winging it this morning.
Protesters. That's the counter protest. Yeah, we got that. You know, and let me see if I can find that.
David, Kyle.
Yeah, Kyle. I can't find it. Which one was it?
Trying to think. So basically, we saw major protests that started out peaceful in Atlanta yesterday afternoon, which they were already having protests in light of the George Floyd movement across the country and Black Lives Matter. So this Wendy's, okay, that looks like it. That looks like it might be part of it. As we know, this Wendy's was burnt to the ground last night, but the Wendy's was not burnt down by these peaceful protesters.
It was burnt down by. Now this is the raw story here.
Okay, then that's the one I want to talk about. Yeah. So we saw protesters take the interstate yesterday and block off traffic in Atlanta. And then, of course, the Wendy's burned to the ground. But this here breaks down who actually burned the Wendy's down, and it was no black protesters.
There wasn't a black protester. So this was retaliation for the
for their shitty burgers.
For their shitty burgers. Yeah. So the protesters, large group of counter protesters. Yeah, I just they it's like, really? Yeah, there's Joy. I don't have a clip. Well, let's switch over to let's get Joy in the camera here.
Hang tight, guys, while we get Joy framed in,
yeah,
and we'll go forward with our original show.
Yeah, let's get Joy framed in here. Joy. Hi, Joy. Can you hear us, Joy?
I can. I am so sorry. I don't know how I did that.
It happens.
It happens.
I have never gotten out of my pajamas so freaking quick.
Oh, you could have worn your pajamas. Like, I still wear mine a lot of times.
Yeah, Joy. Joy, we've been talking about the other murder of the guy, and why don't you brief that out there, Chanda?
Yeah, so yesterday morning we saw another unarmed black man murdered in Atlanta, of course, sleeping in his car because he took the taser from the police. And we were just talking about it, showing the video, and talking about how the arson that actually happened last night in Atlanta, there's video proof that it was a white woman who caught the Wendy's on fire.
Yes, I saw that, and I am so glad that guy got that video.
Me too.
Unfortunately, when stuff like that happens, a lot of times the narrative has already been painted, and people don't want to hear the reality. So racists are already having a field day with these black people destroying things. But yeah, that is so good. I shared that video. But yeah, it's heartbreaking. Like, anytime you shoot someone in the back, it automatically implies they were running away, period.
And they knew his name. They had his car. Couldn't you just let him run home and then send a squad over to arrest him?
Exactly. You had his car. You know who he is. You have his license plate, chances are he's going to want to come back for the car or whatever, but you can trace down his address. There was no need for that whatsoever.
Yet again, will the madness stop? I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. The police just seem to be doubling down. We've seen it with the way that they're treating protesters from coast to coast, and the violence that they are bringing to these peaceful protests. And I don't know, it just seems like it just keeps growing and growing and growing every day. What's going to be the big finale?
Do you?
I'm bringing up my slide deck. Thank you,
Joy. Do you? How do you think, is this going to be the top story tomorrow as far as the George Floyd? Is Mr. Brooks here being shot in the back at Wendy's?
I don't know. I mean, so many of these situations are happening that it's like, what are they going to pick? My inkling is that they might go with it because he was drunk. So they always, it's like, right. Oh, they smoked pot, they drank, they have a traffic ticket. You know how racists always try to rationalize, the brutal killings of Black men or women. And, one of the things that's garnering a lot of attention today is there was a third person hung.
Yep.
There were 2 in California, and now there is 1 in New York. Before any kind of investigation or anything, it's suicide.
Yeah, I saw that.
Bullshit. Your job is not to call it that before you, like, one of the things that I tried to talk about when Pete Buttigieg was running was there is a woman who's, I want to say he was 14 or 15 year old son was hanging with a white sheet from a tree, and he was being bullied by racists. And this woman tried to contact Mayo Pete for like emails, phone calls, everything. Please have this looked into. They ruled it a suicide. My son wasn't depressed. He didn't, and he's been called all these racial slurs. Just look into it. And Pete never responded. Never even sent an email back.
What Pete has done to South Bend, go research it. Jordan Charlton did some really great in-depth interviews and digging into him. I don't know, probably 6-7 months ago. You can go to Jordan's page and find that status quo. But you're absolutely right. What Mayor Pete did to the Black community in South Bend, Indiana is a travesty. He stole their land. He sold their houses. He bulldozed them. He ignored every single outcry that they had as a community.
Yeah, I interviewed a woman, Regina Preston, incredible woman. She was running for his seat. His seat has been white men for over 150 years. And she's a Black woman who is an activist. She was a Bernie delegate in 2016. She was one of his victims in the housing crisis. She was one of the 1,000 home, people who got, just totally screwed. And, to have her run, and interview her and listen to her story. And it's like, people just want to say, oh, Buttigieg, blah, blah, blah. Listen, there's a reason he had less than 1% Black support. There is a reason.
Exactly. Exactly.
And it's our job to do stuff like listen to the people who actually live there. That's our job, to actually listen to people of color who have experienced these things. I was always saying when Bernie was running, he, he's the most popular senator for the 12th year in a row. And he still gets like 95% of the vote in Vermont. That says something to me. That says you've been working for us for decades and we still love you and we still come out even when you're unopposed. But people like Pete, that says a lot.
It does. It really does. Especially from where he's coming from. If you've ever been through South Bend, Indiana, they represent a huge portion of the population there, and he just ignores them. So now that I've got you here, I want to hear your story. We're here to tell the Savage Joy story. So we're going to do an Unruly brunch, and it's a little late, but it's better than never. So, Joy is going to launch a new show tomorrow night, Monday night. What time, Joy?
9 p.m. Eastern. Okay. Really, though. 9
like
p.m.
really,
Eastern,
though.
not Joy Time.
Not Joy Time. Okay. Yeah, we're going to start a new thing on Uphill called Joy Time. And so we're excited about that. We've been in production. I've helped out a little bit. So I've got to take a little bit of peek of what she's working on. And I'm super excited for you guys. I'm super excited for all of us because, oh, wow, she's going to bring it. So some of you may remember Joy was over at Real Progressive for the last few years. You want to tell us a little bit about the interviews and the work you did at Real Progressive?
Yeah, I was with them for 3 years. I've interviewed over 170 candidates since 2018. All of them had to be, Bernie supporters. They had to have, identical platforms. They had to have no corporate money, Medicare for all, things like that. So, it was great because I got to highlight real progressives. Nobody coming in, I did my due diligence with every single person, every candidate. But then I also had, the pleasure of interviewing, like I did a 3-way debate between all 3 people running against Pelosi. I did, a mental health show with 2 people who have struggled, and they shared their stories and how they chose to survive. And I had last month a woman who is a licensed clinical social worker who was discussing with me the trauma of looking at people like Tara Reid being attacked when you yourself have been a victim. I've had, I try to do different things. I have a show coming up on the 23rd that is going to be extremely different. I'm not going to say what it is yet, but it's going to be phenomenal. So I'm excited to continue what I've been doing.
We're excited to have you continue, and I'm really looking forward to that special show you're working on. I've been a viewer. I've been a fan for many years of yours. I've followed you from, my beginnings, and to watch you grow and be able to spread your wings is so gratifying, and I'm just so excited for you. So I want to go back to the beginning of how you got involved. Bernie spurred me in 2015. That's when I was ignited. And so I just like to hear everybody's start story. How'd you get involved?
Yeah, same. I mean, I'm kind of embarrassed, but I'm like so many others. I was not active until 2015. I was completely ignorant to just how bad money in politics was, and I had voted every year since I turned 2018. I even vote in local elections, things like that. I was just like, vote for Dems.
Me too.
Dems are good, Republicans are bad. That's all I knew. I wouldn't research, I wouldn't, whatever. And then I got this thing called the internet. In 2015, I was on things like Facebook and stuff, and I started learning about like Obama and like how I wasn't proud to have voted for him twice anymore, and things like that. So Bernie really planted the seed that radicalized me. And what happened was I made a video when our Harrisburg campaign office closed after the PA primary in 2016. I made a 3-minute video about, I wanted it to be personal. I didn't want to just like send an email like, I love you guys. So it was just about like the way, you know, campaigning for a candidate for the first time changed my life. So, you know, I just kind of made this video about, thank you so much. You guys have become my family. You guys, you know, have taught me so much. I never thought I would be a person who would knock on doors and make phone calls. And it just, it changed me as a person. And I got emotional in it. And like I said, it was 3 minutes. All of a sudden, you know, people from the campaign office shared it. There were like maybe 15 shares. I only had about 100 Facebook friends. And all of a sudden, people started posting it in Bernie groups, and it went viral. And it just like, it was a 3-minute freaking video, just like, thank you, you know. But I guess because it was so raw, people identified with it, and it went viral. And, you know, Steve from Real Progressive said, I need you to do a show with me. And I was like, what? No, I wouldn't have even gotten on camera if I knew that it was gonna, you know, be like spread like this.
Right.
Because even though I'm very outgoing in person, I don't like photos and being on like on camera and stuff. But he kind of kept harping, like, joy. And like 6 months later, I'm like, fuck it, whatever. It was the 1-year anniversary of when I protested the 6 days at Occupy DNC at the convention. And I said, you know what? I'll do my first show. It'll be, you know, a retrospective about 1 year later. This is, you know, what's happening. And my first show, it got over 5,000 views. And I was just like, okay, maybe there's something to this, like just ranting and sharing stream of consciousness. Like, and I hadn't really seen anyone else do that. Like, everyone else was very like, here's videos of this and here's things like that, and much more polished. Right. So I was like, okay, let's try this. I'll do a few shows where I'm just kind of ranting organically and sharing my, you know, experiences.
Well, and that's what people love. Like, you know, I've tuned in so many times on so many hard days because I know that I'm feeling the same way you're feeling. And if you're on camera and you're crying, well, I'm crying at home too. So it was a common way for us to share our emotions together. And, you know, your joy too, when you were on the Bernie birthday boat ride. I mean, we got to share in your joy and our joy for Bernie. And so you have met some amazing people in your time of interviewing people. I just want to do a couple of brag slides. Every time I have a guest, I go to their Facebook and I snoop around, and I people don't like to brag about who they've met in the movement, right? Because we're not in the movement to meet people, right? Yeah. We're in it to change the world. But it is pretty cool when these people see the work you're doing and they support what you're doing too. So this one here is you and Cornell. Where's this one at?
I caught him coming out of the bathroom. And it was
the best place to get him.
I'm like the only person it was at the Draft Bernie thing in Washington, D.C. I'm the only person who got to meet him because he went straight to the panel and then flew out. Oh, wow. And I was like, oh my God. And I started like crying, and he came up and I was like, oh my God, this is such an honor. And he's like, what's your name? And I was like, Joy. And he's like, well, I love you, Sister Joy. And I just freaking lost it. And then
that's
I was
totally something he'd say
at the panel, and I said, Brother Cornell, has anyone ever fangirled like I just did? And he goes, Sister Joy. And I was like, oh my God, I can't take it.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah.
Oz, will you move us to the next slide? Next one. This is that's Nina. Where is this at?
That is in Iowa. That is in Cedar Rapids. That is actually probably about the 10th time I met Nina. So she did recognize me, but she knows me from Pennsylvania, so I was like, hey, guess what? I moved here for 5 weeks, I'm
Right.
I'm kind
That's
of
so
helping
incredible
with the
you did that.
campaign.
For those that don't know,
Yeah, it's
Joy
pretty amazing.
moved to Iowa to work for the campaign and to knock on doors and
To
be on the
volunteer
ground, to
for the
volunteer.
campaign.
Yeah. Okay, so the next slide. Oh, I love this one. Look at Jane.
Yeah.
Was this the boat cruise?
That was the boat cruise. And, Jane is just so lovely. And she actually came up to me. She remembered me from over a year prior. And she goes, you changed your hair color. And I was like, what? And she goes, yeah, last time I saw you, it was kind of red. And I was just like, wait, you remember me? And she goes, yeah, you have the show. You interviewed Jeff Weaver. And I was like, wait, hold on. You've seen my show? And she goes, yeah, I've seen about 3 episodes.
Wow.
And then I proceeded to tell her, I'm going to pee my pants. And she laughed. But yeah, I took a 14-hour train ride to Vermont, there and back. And the day after I had surgery, and I told her, hey, think of me in a day, I'll be under the knife and knocked out, but I wasn't going to miss this for anything. So I came anyway.
I remember that you had your gallbladder out. Is that what it was?
I did.
Yeah. I had mine out too. So I remember sending you messages like, it's going to be okay.
I was just thinking about how it was like the best weekend. So I was just like on a high.
Yeah, you were on a high, and it was fun to watch because we got to be on that high with you. And so then we have Tim Canova in the next picture. Of course, people know Tim.
Canova was actually my first guest.
Was he?
He was at the People Summit. I actually met Farbo. I don't know if you know who that is, but he was staying at my hotel, and I saw he was wearing a Bernie shirt, so we gave each other big hugs, and we connected. And he actually worked for Tim. And at this point, I had only done like 3 shows, and they were rants. But something in me was just like, hey, do you think I could interview Tim? I had never done an interview before. I don't even know what I asked. But he's like, yeah, I can hook you up. So I interviewed him. I had him 3 times eventually, but I interviewed Tim, and I texted him the next day, and I said, I am so thankful. Thank you for being so gracious and so great. And I was like, that was my first interview. And he's like, shut the hell up. I was like, no, I'm serious. It was my first interview.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it was a really good experience. And then he came back twice. So that was good.
That's amazing. Yeah. Tim, boy, he sure went through it. And we know what happened to Tim. We all know, we know what happened in Broward County.
They're starting it with Jen now, too.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay, so this next slide, you have Ron Placone, and who's the cutie?
Yeah, that's my buddy. I've met him many times, and we've been on each other's show many times. This was in Pittsburgh last year. I did an in-person show with him and Graham Elwood. So I called it my Manwich show because I was sitting in between them. And it was just so much fun. I introduced them at their progressive comedy tour in Philly, and I literally fell off the stage. Oh
no.
Graham literally ran across the bar like freaking Superman and swooped me up. I swear it was within seconds. And it was so mortifying. It takes a lot to embarrass me, but it was bad. And then I said to the people, hey, I'm going to make sure you check it out. I'm going to go live with the boys after their show. And people said, can we stay and watch? And I was like, okay. So that was a weird experience doing a live show in front of it.
That's amazing. So who is this cute little baby in your lap here? Duchess? Is that your?
That is my rescue Duchess. Aww, yes.
She's so cute. Okay, so this one last slide, I had to do it. You've got some pretty powerful friends, but this one I was completely taken back by. I love your sign. Your sign says Bernie would have won.
Oh, right.
I'm taking it this was the Wax Museum. Is that where this was?
It was, yes, in New York City. I was with my dad, and he's like, why are you getting a picture with him? And I said, you'll see. And then a woman who was next in line, she was going to give him the finger, and she saw my sign, and she's like, that's hilarious. I was like, yo,
I have a question for you, Joy. It looks like this image is very forgiving of President Donnie's waistline. Is he that thin?
Oh, yeah. They didn't update that statue, that's for sure. I didn't realize he was so tall. I mean, I'm short, but like I'm 5'2", and he looks like he's 7 feet.
Yeah, he does look really tall. I never gave it too much thought. Maybe that's why his hands look so small. Just a thought. Jimmy calls him Donnie Tiny Hands. Donnie Tiny Hands. So I normally go really in depth with my guests, like where did you grow up and how did you grow up? But I'm going to leave all that for your show, so that way you can have that with your audience. I'm not going to like dive really deep into you. So what? You have a new book that you're working on, right?
I do. Pre-sales actually start this month. It is with Pat the Burner, aka Peter Douche, aka Nate's Liver, and he wrote the first book was Peter Douche, and it's kind of like a sequel in a way, but it's a parody on the Resistance. So we make fun of like everyone that people hate on Twitter, essentially.
Which is a long list for the progressives. I can't wait. It sounds hilarious. Yeah, definitely stay tuned to Joy's show, her new show, to get updates of when the book's coming out and all of that good jazz. So tell me about your new show. It starts tomorrow.
Yes, I'm so excited. It is so it's going to be, I do, two kinds of shows. It's always, just stream of consciousness, ranting about like the news or just something I'm thinking about and feeling passionate about, or I have guests. So tomorrow night will just be kind of an introduction to me and like my style and my experience, and what I hope to achieve with Uphill Media. And then my first guest will be Thursday. I have Michael Brooks on. So that should be interesting to kind of talk to a fellow video podcaster, and kind of, pick his brain about everything that's going on.
Right. So we're really excited. It's called the Unruly Hour with Savage Joy, right?
Yep.
Yay. So you'll definitely have to tune into Uphill Media for that. This show has just been, I don't even know. There was no rhyme or reason to the show because we started out late and then I was throwing clips on there. So my rundown is totally blown to hell today. Sorry, guys. I will get my act back.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's not just your fault. It's Sunday brunch went sideways on me. It was unruly for sure.
Yeah, this was all a plan. It was like, you want to see Unruly? Let me show you Unruly.
Right. I love your hair color. Did you brighten it up?
I did.
Seems brighter. Yeah, no, it looks great. So, well, I think we're just probably going to roll into closing credits on this and do our song. Oz, what do you think? No sense of beating a dead show.
No, I think we got it in. It's great. I'm so glad you made it in today, Joy. I mean, we had a really important story that we did cover briefly, which is out there, and I really think it's going to take off tomorrow. And we're so looking forward to seeing you on the dive in the morning.
She's doing the dive?
Yeah, she's going to be in the dive, so you will see Chanda again in the morning. And
that's 1 o'clock my time, correct?
Yes, because
10 a.m. Pacific. Yeah, 9:30 in the green room.
Okay.
We'll drop that 9:30 Pacific time in the green room, 12:30 Pacific or Eastern time, your time, to be in the green room. You'll have a link. And I think we can roll out of here. What's the outro song? Is there any?
My outro song, I dug around, and I just couldn't. I love these ladies. They're called Katzenjammers, and they are from Europe, Germany. They play all over Europe. But I love this song. It's rock, paper, scissors, and we all make decisions. And I think a lot of us in the movement right now have been, doing the grindstone for the last 4 years, and now we're pivoting, and a lot of us are pivoting. I've pivoted, Joy's pivoting. So rock, paper, scissors, make your choice and live with your decisions, That's our song. You guys have a great weekend, or great rest of your weekend, and join us tomorrow.
And no matter what you choose, you're gonna live it. Rock, paper, scissors, which one is? It's your decision. And no matter what you choose, you're